All right, everybody. So I was listening back to the ATC recordings between Reagan National Tower controller and Pat 25, the Black Hawk helicopter, and I think it came across something big, guys. Let's take a look. All right, so there were two exchanges that happened between the tower and the helicopter. One occurred about 2 minutes before the crash, and the other one about 30 seconds before the crash. Let's listen to the first exchange.
If traffic just south of Wilson Bridge, CRJ at 1,000 north of speed, start runway 3.
Scott has a traffic site request visual separation.
This separation group.
Okay, so that first exchange was the tower letting the helicopter know that there was a traffic on final just south of the Wilson Bridge for runway 33. Report that traffic in sight. The helicopter calls back and says, traffic in sight. We request visual separation. Tower says visual separation is approved. That means it's on the helicopter to keep their aircraft visually separated from the CRJ and all other aircrafts in the area. It's something that's very common to occur. It kind of helps the tower controllers out, not have to monitor every specific aircraft. Now, something like this would be especially helpful for this tower controller because they were understaffed at Reagan National that night, where this controller was doing the job that normally two controllers do. He had multiple helicopters that he was handling in the area. He had multiple aircraft that were taking off and landing. And in addition to that, he has to taxi the airplane off of the runway and then transfer them over to ground control. So this controller was doing so much stuff that it's crazy one person can handle that much work. Now let's listen to the second transmission that happened about 30 seconds before the crash. I want you guys to listen very carefully and let me know if you hear something weird on the first pass, and then I'll play it again and we'll talk about it.
S25, CRJ in sight. S25, F1 is CRJ.
Scott has a aircraft in sight request visual separation.
Okay, so what they say, the tower controller comes on the first time and says, Pat 25, do you have that traffic in sight? And he comes on not 2 seconds later and says, Pat 25, pass behind the CRJ. Then a couple seconds after that, Pat 25 comes back on and says, traffic in sight, request visual separation. And then the tower controller comes on and says something that was garbled. I couldn't exactly make it out. Now I want to play it again, and I want you guys to let me know if you hear something on the second transmission from the tower controller.
S25, CRJ in sight. S25, F1 is CRJ.
Did you hear it? You can hear helicopter blades on that second transmission where he says Pat 25 pass behind the CRJ.
S25, F1 is CRJ.
Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with air traffic control transmissions, that tells me that the tower controller did what's called stepped on the helicopter calling back to them and with his response, which means Pat 25 likely didn't hear what the air traffic controller said. So that's why he responded a couple seconds later and says, traffic in sight, request visual separation. So I'm not sure why the tower didn't call up and say, Pat 25, confirm, pass behind the CRJ. It could have been that the tower controller maybe got confused because by this point, there was only about 15 seconds before the crash actually happen. Either way, I think that this air traffic control exchange is going to be pertinent in the investigation, and we need to get it out there so whoever sees it, the news, the FAA, the NTSB, and maybe this will help them come to a conclusion or help them in their investigation. So please share this video out, and hopefully we can get some answers faster.